Mr Turnbull, good morning.
Good morning.
So we have two reviews, one by Deputy Secretary in the Prime Minister's Department into the complaints process, the other by a Liberal MP into the culture in Liberal Party offices at Parliament House. Will either get to the issue of the toxic workplace culture you've identified at Parliament House previously?
Well, look, I think the reviews will probably do no harm. How much good they do, I'd be sceptical about. Frankly, I think a review of this kind should be done by some people that are absolutely independent. I think asking the new member for Curtin, formerly a Vice Chancellor, of course, to do a review effectively into the behaviour of her own colleagues is puts her in a very invidious position. She's I'm not questioning her capabilities if she was not actually a member of the Liberal Party room. So I think what I think should be done is there should be an absolutely rigorous, independent review. Now, that was the approach that I took in a case, a case of inappropriate conduct during my time as Prime Minister. Get somebody who might be an experienced public servant, they might be a former member of Parliament, they might be a distinguished academic, but get somebody outside of both the public service and the political parties to do that review. But really, this is going to require strong leadership from the top. It's going to require the kind of leadership I provided when I changed the ministerial code in February 2018, following the Barnaby Joyce, affair, I suppose, to use a generic term. But it really, ministers and prime ministers have to lead by example, and people who disrespect their colleagues and people who disrespect women, let alone assault them, have to be dealt with the full rigour of the law. Frankly, I mean that's what Brittany Higgins has spoken about is a very serious crime. This has got to be pursued and be seen to be pursued.
Is, in your view, the Prime Minister providing that strong leadership in response to what is a really disturbing allegation here?
Well, look, the problem is not so much what is being said today. The problem is what changes are being made. It's one thing to be distressed and indignant. It's one thing to be very empathetic with the position of Brittany Higgins, and I've got no doubt that the Prime Minister is. I've got no doubt. Well, I don't know, but I think most people admire her, as Lucy and I do, for her courage in speaking out. But the critical thing is that things have got to change, and everybody knows there is a cultural problem in Parliament. I've described it at other times as reminding me of the corporate culture in the 1970s. It's completely out of step with modern Australia and contemporary standards. And, that's why I had to change the ministerial code to actually put in writing that ministers must not have sexual relations with their staff. You wouldn't have thought you needed to write it out, but I did. And I think that there has to be consequences for people who behave inappropriately and disrespectfully because, again, to quote Lucy again, I mean, it's a really key insight. Not all disrespect of women leads to violence against women, but that's where all violence against women begins. And so that's the big cultural change that needs to happen at Parliament.
OK, now you're a former Prime Minister and therefore you have an intimate understanding of how a Prime Minister's office works and how ministerial officers interact with the Prime Minister's office. Is it credible, in your view, and given that experience, for the Prime Minister to say he only found out about this allegation of criminal conduct in a ministerial office on Monday and his office only found out late last week?
Well, I find it incredible. That's to say, very, very, very hard to believe that the Prime Minister's office would not have been aware of that incident as soon as it occurred and would not have been aware of the complaints that Brittany was making. I mean, if they weren't, it was a complete failure of the system. Now, so that's the first point. As to when Scott Morrison was told, sometimes the staff in a Prime Minister's office will use discretion as to what they tell their boss and when they tell it to him or her. So ultimately that's really something only the people involved can answer. But, an incident like this, major security breach, very distressed young woman found there in awful circumstances. Then she complains that she's been raped. I mean, I find it inconceivable that that wasn't well known to at least key members of the Prime Minister's staff. So, and if it wasn't, there was clearly like an absolutely baffling breakdown in communications. It just strains credulity, Michael.
Malcolm Turnbull, we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.